grow a portfolio, then that's when you can really start taking advantage of technologies out there to help you automate a lot of things. We run a pretty robust property management business with very low overhead and manpower because of the technologies and systems that we have in place.
Avoid avoid the
Yeah, no,
um
no doubt.
yeah, I mean,
A third party property manager.
yeah, exactly. In the end, there's a lot of third party property managers out there, and most seem to not be great. And really, the root cause to us and to others is that they don't love your property like you will. And they never will, right? They're not the ones that are owning it and invested their hard-earned dollars to into that property. But then,
They're not paying the mortgage on it.
yeah, right, exactly. So they're just trying to make their payday and run their business. And so, I mean, even little things of picking up trash around the facility, making a true home for the people, the residents that are there. Those are things that owners really care about, and internal property management is caring and making that an impact. But we also have, on-site management, and that's been a huge valuable asset to us within our 48 unit apartment complex in Iowa, Mary Lou. And
Mary Lou, shout out. You'll never watch this, Mary Lou, but we love you.
uh, so anyway, it is a important part of our business as far as kind of managing the property and the internal pieces. And Mark really runs a lot of that. So I'm not sure what else you kind of want to add in there, Mark.
Whatever whatever makes somebody feel comfortable to take that first step to get into their first investment, do whatever you're most comfortable with. So if that's bringing on a third party manager, which I would recommend, that's how I started out. That's how a lot of people start out, is bring them on, and then you can learn yourself what works, what doesn't work. Just from our time in the business and the properties that we have in our portfolio, we just come to the realization that, like Adam said, at the end of the day, it's just about caring. Nobody cares about your crap as much as you do. So when you bring it in house, one, you start to realize how bad managers can be. But then two, once you bring it in house, at least for me, that's when I realized this isn't as tough as what I thought it would be. You do sometimes get late night calls from tenants. But anytime there's an emergency, the same thing I tell the tenants, if there's an emergency, you're calling 911. You're not calling me for an emergency. Anything beyond that is not an emergency. So when you set certain expectations with tenants and get on the same page with them, you're not getting those late night calls all the time. You build their rapport with tenants so they tend to prioritize paying rent on time. So it kind of naturally is a little bit easier to manage properties because of some of those things than what you'd initially think it is. And then as you grow a portfolio, then that's when you can really start taking advantage of technologies out there to help you automate a lot of things. We run a pretty robust property management business with very low overhead and manpower because of the technologies and systems that we have in place. So yeah, to sum it up, whatever makes you feel most comfortable getting into it, and then from there you can really analyze if third party management is right for you or not.
And it's really dependent on where you're at in your business. So
For
like
sure.
first property out of state, definitely get some help in the property management space. Get a third party manager, get some help. If it's down the street from your house, probably something you can manage. Just recognize that there might be some things that you're going to have to do and work on. But long-term rent, a long-term rental, it probably won't be too taxing if you have a decent property in decent shape and a decent tenant. Um, so it's really relative to where you're investing, and then where you're at in your investing journey, whether that's the first property or 100 properties.
I would say a good question to ask them is one, what's their background, how long they've been managing properties for, a big one is who is on their staff, who does what, how many maintenance guys do they have, which is relative to how many properties they manage to see, hey, do they have enough maintenance guys to get to my property in time to keep, again, your customer, it's your customer that rents the property to keep my customer happy. What kind of management software do they use? Not that you really care exactly what they use, but you do care about what reports that can produce and what they can send you on a monthly basis. As Adam can contest, which was one of his big catalysts to get rid of the last management company he had on one of his last rentals, was the reports that they can send over to you can make absolute zero sense. And I admit this myself. We still had a management company manage an apartment that we recently sold. They were doing a halfway decent job. That's a completely different story, but we let them keep managing it. And then every month they'd send over these financials. And no matter how many different times we told them it doesn't make sense, they just weren't able to change it. But you can start getting all these numbers and stuff that don't make sense, but some of them do make sense, and you can start to realize and look into, hey, how come this repair took so long, or how come what's this $500-600 charge, or hey, how come these people are a month 2 months behind, what's the status of getting these guys evicted. So uh I would say the biggest thing though is staffing. Just make sure that they can handle as many units as they say, make sure they can properly handle it with the staff they have on place. We've been with management companies in the past that were extremely understaffed, but kept bringing on more and more properties to manage because management business is a really low margin business. A lot of times you don't get into the management business to specifically make money. You can make money, but um, it can definitely be really low margin. So sometimes you'll find these management companies that have just onboarded a ton of properties and don't have the manpower to be able to handle them properly.
Yeah, and to your point, Mark, about uh picking through the financials every month at least, um the amount of time and energy spent going through those financials, and it would say, okay, like, I mean, both you and I would blast through these things and spend, I mean, literally hours going through and back and forth. And you think about what your time is worth, and then some of the times we would challenge, and this happened far too often. We would challenge, and then all of a sudden be like, oh yeah, you're right, like that's $300 cheaper, or we didn't spend that much time there, or whatever the case may be. And so you think about that, are you just trying to pull a fast one on us? Like, are you just being dishonest, or are you just so disorganized that you don't have true cost accounting in place to understand the true cost of things? And neither one is good, by the way. So like, or is it
Yeah.
both? Is it both, right? So it just in the end it was super frustrating to go through that process, and knowing that every single report is going to have questions and problems and challenges, and um, instead of just running the business and executing, it really kind of drags, and it's obviously time consuming. And then the other piece is just the mental space that it takes was quite significant. So
Yeah, you would see those emails come across every month, like with that much reports. And for me, it's like, dude, don't want to do this now, don't want to do this, and you push it off for days because, like you said, it becomes time consuming because for you to really look into stuff, it takes a while, and to decipher what's on there and to really dig into stuff. Yeah, you're spending hours and hours and hours. And then after you dig into it, then it's the back and forth, asking questions about what's this, what's that. They explain it, you ask more questions about it. And the time suck that it is, it's necessary. Um, but the time suck that it is, man, it sucks. At least for me, I'm not, yeah, it sucked for me.
yeah, and you think about the time and energy that is put toward checking somebody's work and validating the costs and expenses and things like that. Could your time have been spent just managing the property, like thinking about it in that light, and the product that you get out of that
Yeah.
by managing it yourself is significant. So again, it's relative to where you're at in your investment journey, and what you're ready and comfortable to sign up for. But what questions to help validate a property manager The size of team, who's the personnel, number of units that they're managing. So if somebody tells you that they're managing 10,000 units, that may not be a good thing. You know, on one side it's, oh, okay, they have a lot of experience, great, but on the other side, how many people do they have in place, and what are systems that allow them to manage that many units is really important. And then the other piece is interviewing them. You know, go get on a call with them, get on a call, multiple calls, understand their responsiveness. And the last piece for me that has always been correct, which is just trust your gut. It's hard to really put that into words other than sort of like, oh, they're kind of unresponsive, they're kind of that, and you sort of talk yourself into something, and then every time you end up regretting that decision. So, you know, trust in what you're feeling, and the relationship that you've built with that individual, and sort of the vibe that you get really goes a long way, that can't be underplayed.